Hello friends, my name is Harsh. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Alright, so we will be discussing about the introduction of JavaScript, then we'll be discussing about the var, let and const. We'll also be discussing about the data types, then we'll discuss about the operators, how we can use the JavaScript input and outputs, then how we can use the comments. The conditional statement we have so many like if else, we'll be discussing the same. Then we'll be discussing about the loops, functions, scope, global and variable, hosting, arrays, object, and some exercises. So let's start now. So first we'll be discussing about what is JavaScript, what exactly the JavaScript is. So JavaScript is a high level interpreted programming language and we are using JavaScript to make the dynamic websites. So whenever we are going in any website, let's say if I'm going in one of the website called ostraining.in. Now if you can see we have a slider here for example. Now if you want to have the dynamic slider kind of thing, we can use the JavaScript or if you can see like the moment I'm going down some animations is coming for that purpose also we can use the same. Or if we are displaying the data dynamically from the backend, let's say if these menus are coming from the backend. So in that case, we can make the API calls using JavaScripts. If you are going into the inquiry form, for example, and we want to do some validations and all, so again we can use the JavaScript there. So in short, for all the form validations, all the animations, API calls, all the DOM manipulations, because this browser is also called DOM, Document Object Model. So for all this, we can use the JavaScript. And if you want to run the JavaScript, we have two different ways. Either we can use the HTML page. So let's say I'm just creating 01.html, selecting the HTML5, and then inside the body tag, I just writing the script and I can write the JavaScript into the script tag. So I can just say script and inside the script we can just have the JavaScript. So for example, I just want to display the console.log. So console.log, I just want to display the hello world. I can just format the code, right click. I already have an extension live server is installed. So I can just click on that and because we just did the console.log, so we can go into the console and see the output. So the output is hello world because we have just printed the console.log hello world. So this is how we can use the JavaScript in HTML. We can also use Node.js to execute the JavaScript. We already have the Node.js is installed. So if I'm writing the same code like console.log and I want to print hello world with the help of this, we can see the same. So I can just go into the terminal and I can say node01.js and we can see the output hello world. So either we can use the HTML page, we can have some JavaScript code here, or we can directly print the result using the JavaScript file also because we already have the Node.js is installed. As well as we can also use the external JavaScript. For example, I have a file called script.js. In this, I just have console.log and I'm just saying external JavaScript file. Now I can just include this. So I can say script src script.js and the moment we'll be going into the browser, we can see the same external JavaScript file. So even if you have a JavaScript file, we can include the same into the HTML and we can use the same. So we have multiple ways by which we can use the JavaScript and we can make our website fully dynamic. Now in JavaScript, whenever we want to define the variables, we have three options. Either you can use var, let or const. In either way, we can define the variables. These are also called language construct. So I'm just creating the 02.js and let's say I'm just creating a variable called var and username, username, and username is Harsh. I can also use late if I want. So let's say late age is equal to 20, and then I can also use const. Let's say student is equal to true. Now JavaScript is a loosely typed programming language. So we are not defining the data type in JavaScript. So the moment I'm saying username is Harsh, it means this is a string. If I'm saying age is equal to 20, then it is a number. If it is true, then it is Boolean. So the moment we are assigning the values to the JavaScript, automatically it will understand, okay, this is the data type, because in JavaScript, explicitly we are not defining the data type. If we want to define the data type, in that case, instead of JavaScript, we can use TypeScript. So what is TypeScript? TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript, and it is strongly typed. So we can use the data type with the help of that. I can just remove all this. I'm using GitHub Copilot right now. That is the reason, I'm getting all these suggestions. So I'm just saying TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript, and then it is strongly typed language, but JavaScript is a loosely typed programming language. So in JavaScript, we are not defining any data type. But if you want to define the data type, then we can use the TypeScript. We can use the .ts extensions. So these are the different ways by which we can create the variables in JavaScript. What is the difference between var, let, and const? That we will be discussing in the ES6 in the coming sessions. Next, data type. So as I mentioned, right, JavaScript is a loosely typed programming language, and the moment we are assigning the values, automatically it understands the data type also. But mainly in JavaScript, we are saying it is having two different data types. One is called primitive data type, and the other is called non-primitive data type. So whenever we are creating the string, for example, if I'm creating the string, or if I'm creating the number, or if it is a boolean, true and false, or if it is a null, or if it is undefined, or big int, or symbol, these are all the primitive data type. But non-primitive data type are object, array, and function. So these are basically the non-primitive data type. So I just created this string number boolean. Now suppose if I want to create an object, so I'm saying let student is an object, so I can just use the curly braces, and inside it, let's say the student name is Harsh, age is 20, is student is true. So instead of creating these three different variables, we can also use one object where we can define the keys and values. As well as we can use the array also. So let's say I'm saying I have flowers, and in flowers I have rose, lily, tulip. So basically I've just created the same here. So if you can see everywhere, because JavaScript is loosely typed programming language, so we are not defining data type for string also, number also, boolean also, object also, and even for the arrays as well. We can directly store the values inside it. But if you want to use the strongly data type, if you want to define the data type, we can always use TypeScript. All right, next is operators. Now in JavaScript, we can use the operators, which is basically the symbols. So if you want to perform the calculations or some comparisons, you want to do some assignments or some logical operations, we can use the operators. So for example, if you can see here, we are using this is equal to. What is this is equal to? This is basically the operators only. Or suppose if I want to add something, so I can say let a is equal to 10 and let b is equal to 20, and then I just want to do console.log a plus b. So what is this a plus b? Plus is the operator. Suppose if I want to see which one is greater, so I can just say console.log a is greater than b. So it return false because 10 is not greater than 20. But what is greater than? This is nothing but the operators only. Or if I'm doing less than b, again the same. Or suppose if I'm using double equal to basically we use for the comparison purpose. So is it same? 10 and 20 is same? No. So it return false because it is not same. We can also use triple equal to. So for example, I can say console.log A and then triple equal to B. Triple equal to basically we use for strict comparison. So it will check the data type also. So let me do one thing. Here I am saying 10 10. Now both is uh, 10 10, let's say, right? Both is same, but I'm just making this as a string. Now what is this? This is basically the number and this is the string. Now if I do A plus B, so you know what will happen? It will return 1010 now because we are trying to add the number with string. And we can just run the code and see the output. So I'm just going into the right click, open in integrated terminal. And here I am saying node02.js. So you see first is 1010 and then we are just saying a is greater than b false. Then again a is less than b. So even here also we are getting the false. Is it same? So when I'm saying double equal to, I'm getting true. It means I'm getting true because it is not checking the data type. It is just checking the value 10 and 10 is same. But in case of triple equal to, it check the data type also. So because both is not same, one is number, other is string. So we are getting false. Now this all plus, greater than, less than, double equal to, triple equal to, these are all called the operators. Next is input and output. So JavaScript allow us to enter some data. So for example, in JavaScript, we have the prompt box. So for example, I'm just going it here and I'm using prompt. And in the prompt, I'm just writing enter your name. So the moment I'll be going into the browser, you can see we'll be getting the prompt. See, these are basically the input. So this allows user to input some data. So if I want to write something, let's say Harsh and OK. So it took the input basically. And the moment we are using console.log, so basically this we are using for output purpose, this we are using for the input purpose. Even if I'm using the alert, which is very popular, right? Like let's say hello world, I want to give this alert. So the moment we are refreshing the page, you see the hello world because we have written alert first, which we are using for the output. And we have console.log also, which is for output, and this prompt, which is for input. So these are basically the input and output we have in JavaScript. Now for comments, next is comments. So again, it depends what either you want to have the single line comment or multi-line comment. So if you want to have the single line comment, we can just use the forward slash. For example, let's say I don't want to display this comparison, so I can just have the forward slash here. And you see the last false, it's not coming. This is hidden now because we just did the comment. This is basically the single line comment. Now suppose I do not want to display all this console.log. So I can just use the forward slash star and I can use the star forward slash. So this is the multi-line comment. Now you see nothing is coming because I commented this. So comments are basically, these are the notes which we are adding in the code. Most of the time for documentation purpose also, for readability also, or sometime if you want to ignore the JavaScript engine to execute the code, that time also we are using the same. Next, conditional statement. So we have so many conditional statements which we can use. So for example, I'm just creating a file called 03.js and I'm saying, let's say the age I have, the age is 20. And then we can just have some conditions. So we have if condition else if else. We can also use the switch statement the way we are using in other programming languages. So for example, I am saying if age is greater than this, then you are eligible to vote. Otherwise, you are not eligible to vote. The moment I'll be running this code, it will check the condition. So these are operators we are using. We already discussed about the operators earlier. So if it is greater than 18, so you can see, yes, it is greater than equal to 18. So we are eligible to vote. If not, then we can just get you are not eligible to vote. So this is how we can use if else, or if you want, you can use if else also, or we can also use the switch statement, which is the alternative of if else. Next is loops. So in JavaScript, we can use almost all the loops which we are using in other languages, like we have for loop, while loop, do while, for in, for off, for each loop. We'll be discussing about the loops in the coming session a lot. But right now I'm just giving you one example how we can use the for loop. So I'm just creating a 04.js and I just want to have the for loop. So I can just say for and I can just select this. So you see the index is equal to 0. Index is less than, let's say I'm saying 5, index plus plus. And then here I just want to have console.log index. So the moment I'll be running this code, like I can just say node04.js. So we can see 0 to 4. The reason is because we are saying index is equal to 0. It is less than 5. It means 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Index plus plus is just doing the increment and we are just printing the same. So this is how we can use the for loop, where we can just do the initialization, some conditions and increment, and whatever code we want to execute, we can just write the same in the curly braces. Next, in JavaScript, whenever we want to reuse the code, we can also use the functions. Functions basically we use to reuse the code again and again. So let's say I'm saying I have x is equal to 10, then I have y is equal to 20, and I just want to do console.log. So we'll be getting 30. Now again, if I want to add something again, I can declare the variable, let's say let I'm saying x2 is equal to 10, and then let y2 is equal to 20, and then console.log x2 plus y2 30. Let's say if I'm changing the value, let's say 30, then the value will be 40. So whenever we want to do the addition, we can write this lines of code, 3 lines of code. So if you want to reuse the code, if you do not want to write the same code again and again, so we can have the function. So let's say I can say I have a function add where I have a comma b, and this function return a comma a plus b because I just want to do the addition. So whenever we want to create a function in JavaScript, we can write the function keyword, we can write the function name, whatever parameters we want, and this function is just returning the addition. And then we can just call the functions and get the value. So you know what? Instead of writing 3 lines of code, we just need to write 1 lines of code. So every time we will be saving 2 lines of code. So only when we are creating the function, we need to write 3 lines of code, but every time we'll be saving 2 lines of code. And this is the reason, we are using the functions. So whenever we want to do the same activity again and again, so better we can have the same into the function. Right now we are just saving 2 lines of code because the function is very small. But when we'll be working in the project, we will be having so many lines of code. So suppose if it is a 10 lines of code and if you are putting all the code inside the functions, so the moment we'll be executing the functions, we'll be saving 10 lines of code. So functions we are just using to reuse the code again and again. Now in JavaScript, whenever we are creating a variable, so we have two options. Either we can create a variable inside the function or outside the function. When we are creating inside the function, it is called local variable. When we are creating outside, it is called global variable. So let's say I'm creating a new file 05.js, and here I'm just creating a function. The function is let's say display. So the function is display, and I'm just saying console.log hello world and calling the function. So the moment I'll be running this code, I can see the hello world because I just have the hello world in the console. So when I'm running this, you see I'm getting hello world. So we have a function and we are just having the console.log hello world calling the function. Now when I'm defining the variable outside the function, let's say I'm saying let address. and address is Mumbai. So I have a address Mumbai. Now suppose if I'm calling the console.log and the variable which is address. So you know what? Whenever we are defining the variable outside the function, it is a global variable. So inside the function, we can use it. Now if you see, I can see the Mumbai. But the moment I am defining the variable inside the function, let's say I am saying late and mobile is equal to iPhone. So this is a local variable. Now suppose if I want to access this here, so I am saying console.log. So you can see we'll be getting the error mobile is not defined. Because the moment we are defining the variable inside the function, it is a local variable, outside the function, global variable. So how we can make a global variable inside the function? So the idea is very simple. Let me comment this. So if you want to create a global variable inside a function, we do not need to use var, let and const. So for example, I am saying I have laptop is equal to MacBook. So this is a global variable. Now if I want to access the laptop, I can just say console.log and I can see the laptop which is MacBook here. So this is how we can define the global variable outside the function global, inside the function local. But if you want to create a global variable inside the function, we do not need to use var, let and const and we can define the same. So this is how we can use the local and global variable. Next, hosting. Now what is happening is, whenever we are defining the variable inside the JavaScript using var, so it is already hosted actually, and it get initialized with the undefined value. So let me create a new file 06.js, and the moment I'm saying console.log and then x. So you see I haven't defined the variable x and I'm just trying to call it. So node 06.js. So you see I'm getting the error x is not defined, reference error. So this is x is not defined. So I can just copy this and paste it here. Now, if I'm defining a variable, I'm saying x is equal to 5. And then if I'm doing console.log, so we will get the value. So you see, the moment we have console.log, now because we have already, created a variable here, but somewhere we don't have the value here. So we are getting the undefined now. And then because we have defined the variable and we have some value, so we can see the same. So whenever we know we are defining the variable with var, so it is hosted and initialized also with the undefined values. All right. Also, the situation is different when we are using let and const little bit. We'll discuss more in detail in the upcoming sessions. Next is array. So as I mentioned earlier, right, in 02.js, array basically we use to store the multiple values. So in JavaScript, we only have the numerically indexed array. It means we cannot store the key and value both. So let me create a new file for this because this is very important. So 07.js and I'm saying I have flowers. I have some uh, flowers like rose, lily, tulip. And then I just want to print the flower. So I can say console.log and flowers of 0. So array indexing start from 0. And when I'm going to run this code into the terminal, so node 07.js. So you see I'm getting rows because the first one is 0. The array indexing start from 0, so 0, 1, 2. And if I'm just doing console.log flowers, so then we can see all the flowers, which is rose, lily, tulip. But if I want to print the first one only, I can just use the same. If I want to have the 0, 1, 2 all, so we can do something like this. Or if you want to use for loop to print all those values, we already discussed about the for loop. So we can say index is 0, console.log flowers ka index. The moment I'll be doing this, we can see 07.js and you see we have rose, lily and tulip. Let me give a break also in between, because in the console, it is coming together, so does not looks good. So you see, either we can have the index value like 0, 1, 2, or we can use for loop, do while, for in, for a, for each. So many loops we have in JavaScript. I'm just using the for loop for the example purpose, and we can see the output here. But only we can store the values. We cannot store the key because it is numerically indexed array starting from 0th position. Next, objects. Now suppose if you want to store the key and value both, so we can use the objects 08.js. So I already created one example earlier, which is student. So this is the student. We have name, age, and student. Let me take the same in 08.js. So because we want to have the key and value both, we can use the object. Object contain the properties and methods. So this is basically the property. If you want, we can have the method as well. So let's say student is having the display info function. We have this console.log, this.name, age, and student. Now, if I'm just doing the console.log student name, I'll be getting the hash or age 20, or is student true, or if I'm calling the display info function, we can see the same. I'm just running the code. So right now, if you can see, I'm getting the error because the spelling mistake, the console spelling mistake is there. Yeah, this is console. So whenever we have any spelling mistake, we can directly see the errors in console. All right, so this is the object, and we are using curly braces for this. We mainly use the key and value, and object contain the properties and methods. So these are the properties, and this is basically the method. So this is how we can define the object inside the JavaScript. So whenever the requirement is if you want to store the key and value both, then we can use the object. Hope you like this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.